Have you ever been confused about which particle to use after a location? Should you use de, ni, or even o? Take a look at these two sentences. あのレストランでパーティーがあります。There's a party at that restaurant. あのレストランに大きいお寿司の置物があります。There's a big sushi statue at that restaurant. They use the same verb あります and the same location, あのレストラン. So why does one use de while the other uses ni? Most textbooks tell you to memorize which particle goes with which verb, and that's partly important. But also ask yourself, what role is this place playing? Once you understand how each particle is used for a different role, choosing the correct particle becomes much easier. Let's find out. このカフェでよくコーヒーを飲みます。I often drink coffee at this cafe. What does the particle de express in this sentence? Here, the cafe isn't the destination. It's simply where the drinking happens. When you're talking about where an action or event happens, you will use the particle de after the location. That's why we use de in this sentence. Here's another example. 海泳ぎます. I swim in the ocean. What do you place after 海? Right, it's de. Where does the swimming happen? In the ocean. That's why it's 海で. Let's try one more. How do you say I was born in Tokyo? Right, you say 東京で生まれました. But wait a second. Is being born an action? Well, this time we are talking about an event, not an action. When an event takes place at the location, we also use the particle de. So here's a key takeaway. When you're talking about the location where an action happens or where an event takes place, use the particle de. Pretty straightforward, right? De is actually pretty simple, but ni is where most learners start getting confused. Let's get to it. One of the first verbs many Japanese learners encounter is ikimasu, which means to go. When a sentence includes ikimasu, the location often included is the destination. In that case, we use the particle ni. For example, レストランに行きます. I go to a restaurant. The restaurant is where you're going. It's the destination, so we use ni. Now, let's look at the following sentence. このカフェよくコーヒーを飲みに行きます. I often go to drink at this cafe. This sentence looks very similar to what you saw in the previous section. What particle do you think belongs here? It's ni. But wait a minute. In the previous section, we saw このカフェでよくコーヒーを飲みます. I often drink coffee at this cafe. Why was it de before and now it's ni? The key is to look at the verb at the end of the sentence. Japanese particles are often decided by the main verb, not by the noun immediately before them. In the previous example, the verb is 飲みます, to drink. Drinking is the action, and the cafe is where the action takes place. That's why we used de. In this sentence, the verb is 飲みに行きます, which means to go to drink. Now, we are focusing on the action of going. The cafe isn't the location where the main action is happening. Instead, it's the destination you are going to. That's why we use ni. Here's one more example. 日本に留学します. I will study abroad in Japan. 留学します in Japanese means to go abroad to study. So the location described here is the destination. That's why we use ni here. Now compare that with 日本で勉強します. I study in Japan. This time the verb is 勉強します to study. Studying is the action and Japan is where that action takes place. That's why we use de. So the key point is that if the location is a destination, then use ni. But destinations are one of the cases where ni is used. Let's look at some other uses next. The particle ni can also follow a location that is the target of an action or movement. What does that mean? Let's look at some examples. 6時にハチ公の前に集まってください. Please gather in front of Hachiko at 6. The action here is 集まる, meaning to gather. And where are people gathering? In front of Hachiko. In this sentence, Hachiko no mae is the target of the gathering. That is the target of movement. So we use ni. Let's look at another example. 洗濯物をベランダに干します. I air dry my laundry on the balcony. 干します in Japanese means to air dry. When you hang laundry out to dry, the balcony becomes the place where you put the laundry. In other words, it's the target location of the action. That's why we say veranda ni. At first, you might think, but isn't this also an action happening on the balcony? That's a good question. The important question is this the place where the action happens or the place the action is directed toward? You are not doing drying on the balcony. You are putting the laundry onto that balcony to dry. So veranda is treated as the target location rather than the place where an action is taking place. Here's one more example. 玄関に花を飾りました. I decorated the entrance with flowers. The verb 飾りました means decorated or displayed. Where did you place flowers? At the entrance. The entrance is the target of the action, so we use ni. Just like a previous example, the result remains even after the action is finished. The flowers stay at the entrance after you've finished decorating because it is the target location. English often uses at or on for those situations, but Japanese sees the location differently. It focuses on where the object is placed. That's a target location of the action. So when you are talking about the target of an action or movement, use ni. Now, there's one more important case where ni follows an action. Let's look at that next. When a location is where something exists, we use the particle ni. あそこに猫がいます. There's a cat over there. います and あります are verbs that you learn early in your Japanese studies, and you probably learned that you use ni after a location when using these verbs. This is true when you are describing the existence of something, including both living things and physical objects. The key idea is that ni indicates a place where something is located or remains, rather than a place where an activity takes place. Think of ni as answering, where is the person object located? For example, 東京に住んでいます. I live in Tokyo. Why isn't it that here? Isn't Tokyo the location of an action that is living? The reason is that sumu describes where your existence is located. You are staying or residing in that place. The sentence is not focusing on activities you do in Tokyo. It's simply explaining where you exist. Similarly, we say, 友達の家に泊まっています. I stay at my friend's house overnight. With 泊まる, we are not focusing on the activities you do at your friend's house. Instead, we are describing your location where you are staying. To summarize, a location followed by ni is used in the following situations. When talking about a destination, when indicating the target of an action or movement, when describing the location of existence. Now, let's quickly do a quiz. I bought a magazine at the bookstore far from the train station. 電車の駅から遠い本屋でに雑誌を買いました。Do you place で or に? Think for a moment, and if you need more time, pause the video. The answer is で. Why? Some students get distracted by the phrase 駅から遠い, meaning far from the station, and start thinking about destinations. But the key point is that 買いました, meaning bought, is an action. The bookstore is the place where the action happens. So we use で、本屋で雑誌を買いました。Let's do one more question. Let's park the car at the parking over there. あの駐車場でに車を止めましょう。Do you use で or に? Think for a moment, and if you need more time, please pause the video. The answer is に in this case. Students often choose で because they think to park a car is an action is doing so at the parking lot. But in fact, the location you park your car is the target of the action. You are not doing the parking activities at that spot, but you are targeting the parking lot to park your car. So, あの駐車場に車を止めましょう。We've learned how で and に are used with locations, which means that we've solved 2/3 of the puzzle. Now comes the particle that surprises most learners. Oh, let's take a look at that next. We've talked about how に marks the destination of movement, but what about route you take to get there? That's where お comes in. Take a look at this sentence. この道をまっすぐ行きます。I go straight along this street. Here, 道 means street. But the street is not where an action happens, and it's not the destination. It's the space. It's a path you move through on your way somewhere. That's when we use お. Here's another example. 階段を上ります。I go up the stairs. The stairs are not the place where something happens, and they are not the destination. They are the path you move through to reach another place. So, お can mark a passage or route of movement. Here's an interesting example. 受付はこの入り口入ってすぐ右あります。The reception desk is on your right upon entering this entrance. Do you know which particle goes in each blank? The first one is お and the second one is に. Well, the second one is probably clear, the existence of the reception desk on the right, so you need に here. But why 入り口を? Usually you see place に入る, but why this sentence uses を? In our example, however, the entrance is not the final destination. The speaker is telling you to pass through the entrance in order to reach the reception desk. So the entrance is functioning as a route or passing point, and we use お to mark the place that someone or something passes through. When a location is a path or a place that someone passes through to get to the destination, use お. But there's another important idea. お is also used when you move continuously within a certain area. When a verb describes movement through a space, such as walking, running, or flying, the space of movement is marked with お. 鳥が空を飛んでいます。A bird is flying in the sky. In this sentence, the sky is the space where the bird is flying. Since it represents the area through which a movement takes place, we use the particle お. Here's another example. 山田さんと公園を散歩しました。I took a walk in the park with Mr. Yamada. Here, the park is the space where the walk takes place, so it's marked with お. You might be wondering why we don't use で since the action is happening in the park. Using で isn't completely wrong, but 散歩する is generally viewed as a motion verb. The focus is on moving through a space rather than simply performing an activity at the location. Because of that, お is the most common choice. Let's look at one more example. この道をよく走ります。I often run on this street. In this sentence, this street is the path or the space which the movement occurs. Since it represents a space of motion, we again use お. So when a motion verb describes movement through a space, that space is often marked with お. But the particle お can also be used after a location in another situation. Let's take a look at that next. O can also mark the starting point of movement. Let's look at some examples. 毎朝家を8時に出ます。I leave home at 8 every morning. In this sentence, home is the place where the movement begins, so it's marked with O. Here's another example. 危険ですからここを離れてください. Because it's dangerous, please leave this place. Again, ここ is the starting location from which the movement takes place, so we use O. For starting points, we can often use から as well. This may feel more intuitive to English speakers because it's commonly translated as from. In many cases, O and から are interchangeable when they indicate a clear point of departure. However, when the starting point is not clearly defined, only から can be used. For example, 海から日が昇ります. The sun rises from the ocean. Here, the ocean is not really a specific departure point that the sun leaves. It simply indicates the general area which the sun appears to rise. Because there is no clear point of departure, O cannot be used in this sentence. So let's summarize. A place can be marked with O when it represents a path of movement, a point that movement passes through, a space through which movement occurs, or starting point of movement. Now, let's go back to the question from the beginning of the video and see why different particles are used in each sentence. We saw the following sentences at the beginning of this video. あのレストランに大きいお寿司の置物があります。There's a big sushi statue at the restaurant. あのレストランでパーティーがあります。There's a party at the restaurant. Both sentences use the same verb, あります, and both talk about the same location, あのレストラン. So why do we use に in one sentence and で in the other? In the first sentence, we are talking about the existence of a thing, a big sushi statue. The statue is a physical object that is located at the restaurant, so we use に. But what about the second sentence? A party is not a physical object that exists somewhere. It's an event that takes place somewhere. And when we talk about where an event or action happens, we use で. Remember this sentence, 東京で生まれました. I was born in Tokyo. The birth of someone is an event, and that's why we use で. A party works the same way. The party is the event happening at the restaurant. Now, you can see why the same verb あります and the same location can take different particles depending on what you are describing. Now, let's summarize what we have learned and test your understanding with some review quizzes. Here's a quick summary. で follows a place when an action takes place there. に follows a place in three cases. When the place is a destination, when it's a target of an action, or when it's a place where something exists. O also follows a place in three cases. When the place is a path or point of movement, when it's a space through which someone moves using a motion verb, or when it's a starting point of movement. Now, let's check your understanding with some quiz questions. I left the bicycle here. 自転車をここでをにを置きました。Think for a moment. If you need more time, please pause the video. The answer is に. Why? Many students choose で because they think 置きます is an action. But let's think about what role the location plays in this sentence. Are you performing an action at the location, or are you directing the action toward the location? In this sentence, ここ is the target location where the bicycle is being left. When a place is a target of an action, you use に. Let's try another one. I will do my shopping at the department store that's a little far away from my home. うちからちょっと遠いデパートでをにを買い物をします。Think for a moment. If you need more time, pause the video. The answer is で. Many students choose ni just because of うちからちょっと遠い, meaning a little far from my house. But this is nothing to do with the actual action. It's simply describing what kind of department it is. The department store is the place where the action of shopping takes place. So you use で. Let's try a few more quiz questions. Please cross that bridge over there. あの橋で or に or を渡ってください. Think for a moment. If you need more time, please pause the video. The answer is O. Why? Because the bridge is the path you use to get to the other side. When a place functions as a path or route of movement, you use O. Here's the last question. The police often patrol around this neighborhood. よく警察がこの近所でにをパトロールしています。Think for a moment. If you need more time, please pause the video. The answer is either で or を. Why are both correct? If you think of patrolling as an activity that takes place in the neighborhood, you can use で. In this case, the neighborhood is simply the location where the action occurs. However, を is more often natural because patrolling involves moving around the neighborhood. Here, the neighborhood is viewed as a space through which the police move. When a place is a space of movement, we use を. How well did you do? If there are any parts you're still unsure about, go back and watch these sections again. Also, take another look at the summary diagrams to help reinforce the different uses of で, に, and を. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss my new videos. You can also join my daily quizzes in the post section. Check out my Udemy courses for Japanese learning as well. Links are in the description below. Thank you for watching.